Hi, Katie Kim here. Today, we're going to share some tips and tricks on how to do urban infill and make it profitable and stable. And wanted to take the time to give you an example of how we're able to do it in a small town community with a small business and make a huge economic impact into communities. And excited to share with you our journey.
Welcome to the Rental Property Owner and Real Estate Investor Podcast, brought to you by the Rental Property Owners Association, where real estate investors have found success since 1968. I'm your host, Brian Hamrick from Hamrick Investment Group. This episode is sponsored by Green Property Management, managing everything from single-family homes to apartment complexes in the West Michigan area. Find out more at greenpropertymgt.com. And RCB and Associates, helping real estate investors and small business owners navigate the complex world of health insurance and Medicare benefits at rcbassociatesllc.com. Get ready for the Midwest Real Estate Investor Conference in Grand Rapids, Michigan. Join hundreds of real estate investors for networking, learning, and growth. Be sure to mark your calendars for April 24th and 25th of 2025. Hello and welcome to episode 481. Transforming underutilized urban spaces into thriving, income-generating assets requires vision, strategy, and creative deal-making. Katie Kim is a leader in adaptive reuse and strategic real estate development, and she specializes in structuring win-win-win deals that benefit investors, communities, and businesses alike. As the founder of the Katie Kim Educational Platform and the Kim Group, which does real estate development, she empowers developers to navigate complex projects with confidence. Katie, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Brian. I appreciate you having me. I'm excited to be here.
Tell us a little bit about yourself. I know you're in Austin, Texas. And, just love to know what you're up to there.
I split time between Austin, Texas and Illinois, little town, central Illinois, Peoria, Illinois. And I grew up in a construction real estate development family. So I grew up around all the fun things that you can do in real estate and, had a lot of my Saturday afternoons doing, what my parents called family bonding time, what now other people call fix and flipping, and really got to see, things transform and how do you turn an opportunity or something that now my husband tells me I have to call potentially beautiful, because I'd walk into these old buildings that are falling apart and I'm like, oh, this is beautiful. He's like, honey, no, this is not. But I could already see it in my mind. And so I grew up in it, but I took a detour like some of us do in life and went to college and went right to Chicago immediately after college and worked for a consulting company and was there for a couple of years, then went to a startup and then was really looking at what do I want to do with my next step in my life, as I right about my 30s. And I had done the 20s where it's constantly learning new things all the time and getting as many experiences as you could. And I really wanted to be fulfilled. And so I went back home and worked for the family construction company, started running the construction company, and really made an agreement with my parents to say, we'll come back, my husband and I, if you teach us the development side, because that's where we saw the real wealth being built. And so we went back. And then, of course, we went back in 2007 and then 2008 and 2009 hit. So let's just level set that. There was a lot of challenges and opportunities, I will say, and really found in that time frame of running the construction company that my fulfillment and my passion came from teaching others how to do the development deals and how to structure them properly and how to make sure that they're financially viable, even if they're putting a lot of leverage on, and what's the risk mitigation strategy. And really, it inspired me to relaunch the Kim Group in 2015, which up to that time had only done real estate transactions and property management, to have a professional service division where we did developer for fee, where we hold investors, aspiring investors, and or business owners hands through the whole development process. So yes, we help them find the opportunity, structure the opportunity, manage it all the way through, and then even manage it after the construction's done and teach them how to manage and run their own property. And I loved it. And as soon as I did my first deal, I was hooked. I gave my parents a year notice and really leaned into the Kim Group. And About 4 years ago, the Lord put something on my heart that said, Katie, we need you to teach more people and broaden the reach because we're helping people, but more people need to learn about this. And I fought with him probably the last 4 years, 3.5 years. And really this summer, I went to a conference where the statistics of financial illiteracy in our nation just pissed me off and really motivated me to put together our course and community, because I also believe content without context is useless, and lean into that. So that's where we just launched the Real Estate Development Academy, and we're teaching individuals, aspiring individuals, how to scale their real estate portfolio and do their first or next development deal.
Take our audience through that. If people come to you and say, Katie, help me figure out how to develop this, take us through a project that you did recently and walk us through step by step.
First thing is you're talking about, you have your investor conference, right? A lot of investors are doing some stage of development when they invest, right? They may do a value add, a fix and flip, an addition, some kind of systems upgrade. So the stages of development, you can also niche into. And so when you ask about, how does that start? It really depends on what I call your time, talent, and treasure triangle. So at each tip of the triangle, like an equilateral triangle, you have your time, your talent, and your treasure at any point in your life. And really to lean into making sure it's all aligned. And it goes back to that first before what product type, what strategy, how do you want to do it? Because if you're somebody that doesn't have a lot of time, but you have a lot of treasure, that's a different strategy, right? If you're somebody who has a lot of time and a lot of talent, but not a lot of treasure, that's a different strategy. And even as I say those things, people are thinking, yeah, that's this strategy, or this is what so-and-so does. And that's exactly it. And so once you get in alignment with that, then it's, now what's the project and what is the opportunity and how do we put all the pieces together? So the first project I love bragging on that we did as the Kim Group, as our first professional service developer for fee project, is a Trefzgers Bakery project where we took an 1861-year-old building and renovated it to put the bakery into and expand it to 3 times the space or 1.5 times the cost. And we have they actually launched an event center and we have other tenants in there leasing from them. That is a pretty complex structure to go into because we had 8 financial sources in that deal. So to kind of, talk about that one, it's great and I love it. But when you talk about somebody making that leap from inspiring investor, right, to doing their first development, it really goes to knowing the process, knowing what you want to do, and making sure your network is able to assist you in that. And there's a thing I use a lot of sports analogies because I grew up, playing sports and playing basketball and soccer. And I say, usually when you have a real estate agent or a real estate investor, they have your tier 1, they have your starting team, right? They have your finance people, your banks, your mortgage, and they have closing companies, inspectors. But when you start to go into development, you need the special teams, you need the tier 2, you need what type of development am I doing? And then who do I need on the team?
Is that something that you bring to the project as well, as you have that team in place and you know who to go to get the level or the tier 2 things accomplished?
Yeah. And we also talk to our people and say, hey, who do you know? How do you make these relationships and how do you engage with them? Going to conferences like you're hosting, they're great to mix with like-minded individuals and get ideas and inspire and do deals, and also bring those back to your community, right? Where you can do this, you can step into development. And that's where I want people to understand with our mentorship that a lot of times we're holding their hand through the process, but they're doing the work.
I'd like to take it from the bakery. You use that as an example, and I'd like you to kind of walk us through that, starting with, what it is they wanted to accomplish. I mean, what was the building they had to work with, and what did they want to accomplish there?
Actually, when we started, we were brought in by the municipality for another project. So we were going to put them in a new construction project, and they're like, no, we want to go with something that represents our brand. And I'm like, you're an 1861-year-old German bakery. And I think I may have mixed up the years before. The building was 1893, 1895. years old. The bakery was 1861. And so, when we went into that, we said, okay, your business cannot afford 3 times the cost. It just can't. And even if we do projections that say you're going to 3x or 4x your business, you got to be real with yourself to say, is that possible, right? When we go into any investment real estate, it's you want to say, yes, I'm going to increase rents, I'm going to increase revenue. But if it's not realistic, you're setting yourself up for failure, right? I mean, we've all been in those like pie in the sky projections. So we had to come together and say, how much debt can we put on the business? And then how do we have all these other economic incentives that come in to help take the ease of that burden of the financial debt off the project and still get it accomplished? And that was really the initial gap. So where we ended is we worked with the village to put a series of economic incentives in place to make that happen. So at the end, we had a $5.5 million project with only $1.8 million of bank debt on it. That changes the revenue. That changes the projections, right? Because if we would do a typical 80-20 deal or 70-30, that debt would be, way higher.
Were you layering in grants? Was the city putting up some money, some historic tax credits? I mean, what all did you layer into that?
So the 8 sources was tax incremental financing, so TIF. So we bonded the TIF. There's multiple ways you can use it. So we bonded the TIF. So that really incorporates leveraging the property taxes. For those that aren't familiar with the TIF, leveraging the property taxes that the building was going to generate from the increase in value. And then we also did a business development district, which added a 1% sales tax onto the development area and actually throughout the downtown, which created a ripple effect, which we can talk about later, of growth for the community. And we leveraged that as well for the bond. And then special service area. And then we had the enterprise zone already in place. And then we leveraged historical tax credits. And we leveraged SBA. We leveraged a macro loan from the county, which was it was at a great rate. It was, I think, below 4%, 25-year AM for 10 years term. I mean, and this was before rates were, 2.7. And then we brought on some investors as well. And then we had your typical bank debt. So when you go into projects like that, a lot of times business owners and even real estate agents, their eyes will gloss over and be like, wait a second, like what? Where do we start with that? Where we helped guide their hand through the process and did a lot of the heavy lifting. We taught a lot of the council and the municipality, brought in consultants to help bring those projects and those incentives to be created in the district. But for us bringing in those different types of financial structures, the project, it wouldn't go forward.
I want to just dwell on that point for a moment because, anyone who's out there listening and is intending to do any sort of development, these funding mechanisms are available everywhere. They come in different forms and shapes and sizes, but they are available. And it's important to know what they are and how to find them. But as you say, it's a situation of who, not how. Like, who can you get to find these for you? Not how do you figure it out yourself? Because it's too overwhelming for any business owner to figure out themselves. They would want to come to an expert like you, or like in my case, we have an attorney, several attorneys in town who we can go to who just know what all of these incentives are already and can help with that.
And that's the point, whether you're doing development or real estate investing, is to look at the opportunity of these incentives. As you mentioned, they're everywhere. And ask the question and figure out how you're not leaving money on the table.
It sounds like you started with the capital stack. Like, how do you layer in all the funding, the financing? It sounds like SBA put up the money or the actual bank loan. What other steps then did it take to transform this bakery?
We started with the capital stack, and I always look at like sources and uses as kind of a yin yang. You kind of go back and forth as things start to get firmed up. And we really started with this project with revenue, right? What can the project afford to pay from a debt service standpoint, and then step into sources. So similar when you're looking at any investment property, it's what are our market values? What is our market rents? What can we get as a cash flow or revenue into this project? And then what return do we want? What's our, our non-negotiable? And then what debt can we put on it?
I'd like to take a moment to tell you about Green Property Management. Not only do they manage everything from single-family homes to apartment complexes in the West Michigan area, they also manage my entire portfolio. So I can tell you from personal experience that their unique flat-fee management style is worth a closer look. If you feel that your property isn't operating to its fullest potential, then Green Property Management can help you take a holistic approach that will save you money, eliminate your headaches, and increase your net income. And if you're a property manager interested in applying Green Property Management's model, give them a call at 1-866-95-GREEN or visit them on the web at greenpropertymgt.com. If you're thinking of leaving your W-2 job and becoming a full-time real estate investor, one of the greatest costs you must consider is healthcare for you and your family. When I made this transition myself, I found the whole healthcare insurance process to be confusing and frustrating. That's why I'm glad I met Chad Creasy at RCB and Associates. Chad is a professional health insurance agent who helps real estate investors and small business owners understand and choose their best healthcare options. And best of all, his services are covered by the insurance company and won't cost you a dime. If you live in Michigan and are expecting a change in your healthcare insurance coverage for any reason, or losing employer coverage or transitioning into Medicare, then you owe it to yourself to contact Chad Creasy at rcbassociatesllc.com. Save the date for the Midwest Real Estate Investor Conference happening April 24th and 25th of 2025 in Grand Rapids, Michigan. This event is the perfect place to connect with fellow real estate investors, gain valuable insights, and elevate your real estate game. With a lineup of expert speakers and numerous networking opportunities, you won't want to miss it. Was the bakery investing in the building themselves, or was it a different group of investors who were going to build it out and then lease it to the bakery?
I like control. And so I want people to make sure that the investors are not in their business unless they need them to bring it in. So it was a separate LLC that did the building. The bakery owners did invest a little bit. They invested, initially they came in at $50,000. And basically, we went out and we structured the deal and helped bring investors into their deal. They also helped as well. They had a couple of family and friends that wanted to come in. And the way we structured it, and with the SEC regulations, right, is we didn't market it. We didn't have a certain requirement for sophisticated and qualified investors. And we were able to take smaller increments because it was family and friends. For some of them.
You did like a 506B syndication?
Yeah, I was trying to think it was a B or BCD. Yeah.
Friends and family, and it's sophisticated, and not everyone was accredited. It would be a 506B. Okay, so you syndicated the project. Keep going. I mean, what other steps did you go through?
Because we did that, the 506, I'm going to say 506B. I think it's right on point. We didn't market it, right? So that is something that if you are, you're doing the raise and you don't have a project big enough to take it for a public syndication and have all those fees, then you are also educating some of those, smaller size, I don't want to say small investors, smaller size of investments, on the process. And one of the things we did, which I loved, but we worked with our CPA to do a side-by-side comparison. If you put this money in the stock market and it got 10% every single year, what would it be over 5 years over this? And that was really telling because, as you know, one of the benefits we love about real estate is leverage and write-offs and the depreciation and all those benefits, where a lot of times when people are showing you a project, they just show you the income, and so you don't see the full value. And we did that. And we actually, that really gave insight into the value of this project. And it was great on that.
Converting this old building into, what the bakery needed, I'd imagine from the development standpoint and the adaptive reuse, there was quite a bit of work there. Can you talk about some of the challenges?
So when we first walked into the building, the every window, and there was 124 windows in the building, I believe, were boarded up or replaced with double hung vinyl siding windows. The building had had roughly 5 fires in it. It had the original wood structure inside, which was, again, potentially beautiful. And it had the upstairs, it had been, I say like bastardized over the years. It had lead-based paint all over the outside of the building now on the brick. Highest lead-based paint the inspector said he'd ever seen in his 35 years, which is not something you want to be first in. And then we had internal water features. We had creative ceiling structures where it was just really keeping the water out as much as it could. And the upstairs was really this quarter of a space over the years. The first time we actually went into the building, we got lost and didn't realize how we could get back out and down the stairs. We had to literally follow our footprints in the dust on the floor to do it. So, you're kind of panicking for a second, like, are we ever going to get out of this building? But it was rough, to say the least. I mean, that kind of paints the picture on that. And we started to look at, what are the good bones? What do we need to peel away? There was some spots on the brick that the paint wasn't on. It was half of one side. And so immediately we're like, we got to bring the brick back to its original glory. We have to, replace the windows. And especially if you're going for historical tax credits, those requirements from the National Park Service are going to guide what you can and can't do. And then inside, we really looked at optimizing their operations and the layout from, a rental income standpoint, and making sure we maximize the amount of space for tenants and minimize the common area. And really, once we started working on those flows and those layouts, it started to come together from the inside of the building standpoint.
As you're going through all these steps and things that needed to be done, and you're providing the development services, is that what the owner and the investors were looking to you to take care of?
We guided the whole process of, one, negotiating the building deal. And we really focus on contingency. And that's something where we have a checklist of 20 required contingencies that we put in any LOI to make sure that the deal's controlled. And so, we had to extend this 3 times, I think, the building and land purchase 3 times, because of going back through those different zoning and, to the village for the redevelopment agreement. And then we worked with an architect. We did schematic design with the owner. And then we worked with the architect to get the plans. We worked with the contractor to do some high level budget forecast so we could put together that stack with confidence. And then we'd like to work on a design build with a team integration structure. And then we oversaw construction for them. So as an owner's rep, so we're at the job site every day, checking on things, looking at change orders, potential costs, potential savings, and then also leasing up the property as we were going through construction, because we had an event center. So we actually had brides want to walk through as we're doing construction, which is kind of interesting. And we were able to lease up the entire, other tenant spaces within, the construction timeframe. So we really came to the end of construction with a 100% leased building.
You mentioned a term, design build. Can you explain what that is?
I'm a big fan of doing design build if it's done right, because a lot of people did variations, as we all do in communities. So when you do a design build, you get your team together up front. And usually that entails architect, engineer, your main general contractor, and your MEPs, your mechanical, electrical, plumbing, at a bare bones minimum. And what you do is you go through and you talk about the project, you talk about the floor plan, and you have them also look at where are their cost saving options. Is there plumbing on an adjacent wall that you can combine into one wet wall and you reduce plumbing costs, right? One vent stack, stuff like that, where you really can help save money. Because if you go to I'm going to say the traditional, and I'm doing air quotes there, the traditional design it with an architect, then put it out to bid, and then hire a contractor, you're focusing on saving 20% of your project cost. You're focusing on saving the contractor's markup and the contractor's profit, really. And little changes that they may have valued at in their bid if they did. If you do a design build with that team integration, you're focusing on saving 80% of the cost, because now you're coming in even before it gets on paper. So the cheapest point in the project is before it gets on paper. The second cheapest point is when it's on paper. The most expensive is when it's being constructed. So, when you go in with a team, and especially a team you can trust and that's worked together, you throw out everything's open book. Here's my overhead, here's my markup. And it also helps because they're going to come to the table and say, hey, we're going to need this for code. It's not on the drawings. That is the number one thing I see with a lot of bid projects that you have change orders on is, well, the architect didn't put it on the drawing, so I didn't put a price to it. Yeah, but you knew you needed it for code. You knew you needed it for operations. And so we have a couple ways we go into that process. But when you have the team at the table, that's the conversation is you're covering everything on the drawing and what you're going to need for code and for permit approval.
What other additional steps beyond what we've talked about did you go through as far as like the adaptive reuse and the repurposing of this building?
There's many. I know we don't have time for everything, but really looking at, again, the cash flow, the sources, the structure. We actually wanted to keep the integrity of the time, and we had to add some additional support. So we went to a guy in Chicago that was actually demoing out warehouse buildings to get the right species of wood to add them to the wood structures, on that side. So there's some really unique construction points we went through. But in terms of really those steps, it's knowing what the project can produce from that revenue and then knowing what it's going to cost and figuring out how do you put that debt stack together to be able to bridge the gap in that side. So that there are so many different steps in there that we probably could do a whole different episode just on that. But, also walking through our clients with the back and forth of approvals. That's something, especially when people get into development and even investing, it's not for the faint of heart for that reason, right? There's a lot of no and going back. Okay, we're going to tweak something. No. Okay, tweak it, go back. Yes. Right. And so keeping the mindset positive and moving forward and knowing that you have a good project, you have a good brand and leaning into that and fighting for it, is the key. And we really were able to get into the business's operation and their savings. And we were able to literally say at one time at a council meeting, like having a basement for this business is going to save them 34% off their cost of goods because they're going to be able to order from different distributors and different products. And that knowing your product and your business and your client really in depth can help you. And that's where we need to get to that point to advocate for our clients and our people on every project.
Where is this building and what's the bakery's name so people who live there might know what you're talking about? And then also just kind of fill us in on how it turned out. I mean, this is one of your big wins. How did it turn out?
The bakery is located in Peoria Heights. So it's right off of, a lot of people have heard of Peoria. Peoria Heights is, I would say, a neighborhood in central Illinois. And the bakery, they actually ship their thumbprint cookies like all over the world. So I'm sure a lot of people in Michigan would definitely know about Trefzgers Bakery and hear about them. And they are, they're thriving in their new location. Like I said, we put them into 3 times the space for 1.5 times the cost. We actually halved their utility bills because we put in green infrastructure for them. And you can go there and you can also see a ripple effect in the community that this bakery project produced and was a catalyst for, where a project that normally had not seen really any massive scale development looked at or experienced $15 million of ripple effect development 2 years after the construction completion of that bakery. And they received $35 million 4 years after. And I told my team, I'm like, we need to go back and do it again. But it's a great experience. It's right along the Rock Island Trail. So if you go there, you can go get coffee, have, a Danish, have a thumbprint cookie, walk the Rock Island Trail, come back, really spend a day. They're doing things all the time to enhance the campus and the development. We actually just bought or helped them buy 2 additional adjacent properties so they can expand their parking, expand more of their green space. During construction, fun fact, we realized, because it was there before the city was, the old railroad spur went right up against the building. When we were digging for the geothermal wells, we found the tracks. And we actually we lowered the grade to be able to expose them. So there's a bunch of fun things when you go into the bakery, and really unique, just fun, like little, what we call like Easter eggs. So where if you go into in the bathroom, the tile on the floor is TB 1861. And that was Mr. Trefzgers, the original founder of it, bakery's license plate number. And so just little things that you love in our small communities and our small businesses that make them who they are. And so really to bring those into the experience of the real estate was one of the most satisfying opportunities that we could do. And you feel that when you walk into their space.
Tell our listeners how they can find out more about you, get a hold of you. Where would you like to send them?
So you can go to our website at katiekim.com, KATIEKIM.com, and follow us on social media at thekatiekim.com. And if you want to check out before and after photos of the Trefzgers Bakery, go to the Kim Group on Facebook, and we have a photo album of before and after. And the transformation is so fun to watch and view because our community came with us every step of the way through that project.
What is your favorite hack or app?
My favorite hack is time blocking. I'm really big on time blocking and really focusing in on leaning into that time. Apps? Ooh, that's a tough one.
What do you go to every morning when you wake up?
My favorite app is probably Spotify because I do my miracle mornings and my podcast through there. So I'm always very conscious on my E to E ratio, my entertainment to education ratio. And so I really pour into Spotify.
Katie, thanks for coming on the show today to talk about adaptive reuse and this bakery that you took the owners through the process of redeveloping it and putting the capital stack together. I mean, all very important things. And I think you've shared a lot of great information that could be very helpful to our listeners today. Thank you so much for having this conversation.
Thank you. It's been fun.
I want to thank everybody for listening to this episode. I'm your host, Brian Hamrick from Hamrick Investment Group. And you can find out more about me by going to higinvestor.com. That's HIGinvestor.com. And you can also ask questions and join us on Facebook by going to RPOA, Rental Property Owner and Real Estate Investor Podcast. And remember to save the date for the Midwest Real Estate Investor Conference on April 24th and 25th of 2025 in Grand Rapids, Michigan. It's going to be an event you won't want to miss, packed with invaluable sessions and opportunities to connect with like-minded investors. Keep listening for more updates, and we look forward to seeing you there. This episode was sponsored by Green Property Management, managing everything from single-family homes to apartment complexes in the West Michigan area. Find out more at greenpropertymgt.com. And RCB and Associates, helping real estate investors and small business owners navigate the complex world of health insurance and Medicare benefits at rcbassociatesllc.com.
You've been listening to the Rental Property Owner and Real Estate Investor Podcast, brought to you by the Rental Property Owner Association. You can find out more at rpoaonline.org. If you enjoyed this podcast, please go to iTunes to subscribe, rate, and review.